A z nami jest Peter Doran, dziennikarz amerykański, który od lat obserwuje polską politykę, konserwatywny dziennikarz, który przygląda się również temu, co dzieje się w amerykańskiej polityce, również w kontekście tego, co dzieje się w Europie Środkowej. Peter, welcome to Telewizja Republika. Great to see you in person here. You've been our guest several times, but that's the first time you're in our studio.
I finally made it. Thank you for having me.
Peter, you are here in a special day. We are here after Donald Tusk liberal left government took over power in Poland. And you are one of few American journalists who follow the story of transition of power in Poland and then the outcome of what happened. What's your take on what happened in Poland in the context of several changes that we see all around the world right now?
Well, Michal, it looks like the politics of vendetta are at play right now in Poland. Think back to 1 year ago when Polish televisions went dark. You know, it is a bad day when a government shuts down any press, but when the government shut down the press here in Poland by pulling the plug on Polish public broadcasters, that was a very dark day for Poland, and it sent a message that the new government was going to deal in the politics of vendetta instead of answering the needs of the people of Poland. And that was a big concern.
I remember talking to you that day, on those days when I was still a journalist of TVP, of actually television that was switched off. And I remember that when I was talking to people in US about what actually happened, people had problems with believing in actually what happened. I mean, what is the way that you approach as an American citizen this kind of activity, turning off the active TV station with huge viewership back then?
Well, you have to remember the optics of this were shocking. So here we are in America watching what's happening in Poland, and we see armed police officers going into television stations to physically remove directors, producers, and journalists from the building. Every government has the right to appoint its own people. Elections should have consequences, but there also should be an orderly transition. Right now, we're seeing in America an orderly transition, but 12 months ago, we saw a very chaotic and disordered transition. And Michal, that's why I say it sent the signal that the new government was going to deal in the politics of vendetta. And we saw that, and all the world saw it.
Over the span of those 12 months, we've seen several important connections, political connections between both sides of the Atlantic, between Poland and US. We saw a couple of visits of President Andrzej Duda, of Polish president, to US. He saw President Joe Biden. He saw both Democratic and Republican side of American Congress. And Polish president met Donald Trump before he won the election. On the other hand, we saw very troubling tweets or ex-posts of Donald Tusk pointing Republican politicians and criticizing them for their policies. What's your comment on the state of relations between Poland and the U.S. right now?
Well, I would look particular at Donald Tusk himself. Here we have a politician who was one of the loudest and longest-standing critics of President Trump. Michal, remember back in 2019 when Donald Tusk went to the UN General Assembly and he stood up on the rostrum and he absolutely slammed Trump from the rostrum of the United Nations. But more than that, what did he say? He said, it is wrong for you to love your country and seek democracy. It is wrong. The quote by Trump was this. It was a powerful quote. He said, Donald Trump said, those who seek democracy should protect their sovereignty. Those who want peace should love their country. Those were Trump's words, and Donald Tusk stands up at the rostrum of the United Nations and he says, I reject that. This is a dangerous idea. You and I should ask, dangerous to whom? But I think we now know the answer. Dangerous to his power. And so he has been governing just as he said in the United Nations here in Poland, and that is where the next administration should focus its attention. Because the United States does not need a government here in Poland that is pursuing the politics of vendetta. Why? It weakens Poland, and we need a strong Poland in order to resist Russia and to help our shared friends.
You are also one of vocal supporters of active American policy in Europe. We in Poland view U.S. as what famously Ronald Reagan said, a shining city on a hill, a beacon of freedom. But we do have this kind of discussion within U.S. right now about the way that things should develop here in Central Europe. What's your take on the perspectives that we see after Donald Trump takes office on the 21st January next year?
Well, frankly, I was surprised to see that our ambassador here in Poland didn't make a strong statement condemning the closing down the raid on Polish public media 1 year ago. And I've been shocked to see that our ambassador hasn't sent up the warning flags, saying it is not right to claim you want to be a democratic government and govern undemocratically. There is a concern that the current government is getting closer to that dangerous line of governing undemocratically. So that needs to be the first message by the incoming administration. It's time to set aside the politics of vendetta, and it's time to hold fast to what you said, that you wanted to be Democrats, that you did not want authoritarianism. And I think the shoe is on the other foot right now, and we're getting closer and closer to that top-down form of governance. That is bad for any country. We need a government in Poland that responds to its people and doesn't view itself as the master of them.
Peter, you mentioned the famous you and Donald Trump speech. It was a speech in which, as far as I remember, Donald Trump was addressing each and every state, claiming, and it's very hard not to agree with that, if you are a German citizen, German should come first for you. If you are a Polish citizen, Poland should come first for you. If you're an American citizen, America first should be your policy. What is Because it seems to me that for the liberal mainstream all around the world, there is something controversial in this kind of statements. What controversial could be in this kind of political approach?
Well, I don't see anything controversial about it, and here's why. Every person who's ever flown on a plane has always heard that safety message. Should the aircraft lose its pressurization, the mask will fall. What is the instruction? Always put the mask on yourself first, and then help others. Right now, America is doing much the same. We look at our own country. We look at our own challenges. America First says we have to make sure that America puts on its mask first so that we can help others. And that's what everyone in the plane would be doing. That's what we're doing right now. It makes common sense, Michal.
Yeah, the common sense part. I'm actually a rescue diver. When you are doing a rescue diver course, the first thing you learn is that you have to be safe as a rescuer to help
others.
And that's obvious rule of every, I assume.
Donald Trump is putting that into policy.
Donald Trump is the next president of the United States. Before the election, we've heard that this is going to be a razor edge win if Donald Trump wins. However, we had a landslide in this election. What's the reason for this? Did you have a time in U.S. to work it through, to find the reasons for which Donald Trump won this election cycle in such a tremendous way, in such a big numbers?
Almost all of the polls were wrong. One or two of them were right the whole time. And they showed Trump up by 3 or 2 points, and that's about the margin that he won. Most of the polls were dead wrong, but I could see that the polls were wrong on the ground level. In my own little part of Virginia where I live, I was campaigning for Trump. I was talking with voters, and I could see the energy, the excitement for Trump, and then you would turn on the traditional news media, and you would see a very different story. And you and I both know when the reality that you see is different than the reality that you're told you should believe on television through traditional broadcast media, something's wrong. And so there was an upswell of support for Trump because he was talking about the issues that voters cared about. Crazy idea, right? If you're going to win an election, you have to address the issues that voters care most about. Instead, from the other side, there was this top-down lecturing, whereas Donald Trump was saying, we're not going to put taxes on tips that people receive. We're going to address inflation. We are going to send back dangerous illegal immigrants in our country. These were all powerful issues, and voters responded to them. Meanwhile, they were getting a bunch of talking points and prefab ideas from the other side, and voters roundly rejected that. Go figure. You can win an election by addressing what voters want you to do.
We've been following this campaign pretty closely, and we've been on the ground of those battleground states, and we saw a huge difference between the attitude of the mainstream traditional media and the effects on the ground. We've been traveling all around Pennsylvania, and we saw huge support of Donald Trump, and not that big, or actually even very small support to Kamala Harris in the latest phases of this campaign. And this is actually what happened. Why the mainstream media rejected Donald Trump, someone who is from their world. I mean, Donald Trump is a media celebrity. He was built as a public figure on the mainstream media. Why did they reject him?
Well, we've seen a strange shift in American media. There was a time in which many people believed that journalists were there to, get this, report the facts, tell them what's happened, and let the voters make up their own mind. In recent years, that has shifted. Journalists themselves have been talking about that shift. They've been saying maybe we shouldn't just report the facts, but maybe we should tell voters how they should think, or how they should interpret the news. That has moved many journalists and many broadcast outlets in the United States away from traditional journalism and into the realm of political activism. So when you are a left-leaning journalist in America, you can't actually report those facts because A, you might lose your job, and B, you might not convince voters to not vote for Donald Trump. That's a major shift.
Peter, my two final questions. The first question is a question about the Polish voters in the U.S. Campaign. We remember year 2016 when it was important, and we've seen Donald Trump and his campaign addressing Polish voters over and over again over the span of last 4 weeks of the campaign. We've seen Kamala Harris trying to do exactly the same. Why that was happening?
Well, I would push back slightly on this. I did not see her campaign show active outreach to Polish voters in America the way Donald Trump was doing it.
Definitely not the same scale, but she addressed the Polish voters during the debate, but she wrote a letter, or actually her supporters wrote a letter after a couple of Donald Trump's activities towards Polish voters that was addressed to Polish voters as well. So she was in a way active. Obviously not in the scale that Donald Trump was.
And none of it landed because it was not genuine. Voters can tell a genuine person from an ungenuine person the way you and I can tell spoiled fish from a fresh piece of fish. If it's bad, it stinks. And many American voters saw that it just wasn't genuine, what Kamala Harris was selling. Meanwhile, look at Donald Trump. The guy is making French fries in Pennsylvania and having the best time. He's actually having fun talking with voters, handing out French fries. That was genuine Trump, 100%. He leans into the meme. He knows what he's doing is hilarious. He's having a great time, and he knows voters are paying attention. That was the moment I really knew he was going to win, because it wasn't just Donald Trump at the McDonald's, but it was the 2 miles of people who had shown up in Pennsylvania just to see him drive by. Kamala Harris had to bus in her supporters from all across the country when she did an event, whereas people showed up just to watch Donald Trump drive by and wave at him.
Yeah, we had a campaign of the celebrities being brought to the concert without the concert and people showing up for Donald Trump to see Donald Trump.
You saw it yourself, yes, absolutely.
Peter, and my final question. We are ahead of the 47th term of President of the United States, Donald Trump, and we view it from Poland from the perspective of a transatlantic relations. What's your assessment of the security issues under Donald Trump? After, well, yesterday, Financial Times wrote a piece about NATO member states discussing 3% GDP financial mark. That was actually what Polish President Andrzej Duda spoke about during the meetings with Donald Trump in Trump Tower and during his visits in U.S. What's your assessment of the upcoming relations between Poland and U.S. under Donald Trump?
Poland has a very short window of opportunity here. We have to remember that Donald Trump and President Duda have a very close personal relationship. They get along great. I can't tell you how many times when I got to see Donald Trump and President Duda together, Trump had a F-35 flyover at the White House during his visit. He did not do that for every visiting head of state. So there's a close personal relationship, but it's a window of opportunity. As we know, it's a short one because President Duda is going to step out of the presidential palace soon. Use this opportunity to rebolster the friendship between Poland and America, to highlight the security that Poland brings to NATO, that brings to the United States, show what Poland can do to help. And in return, I guarantee Donald Trump will do the same because he likes Poland. He remembers his visit, his famous speech that he gave here in Warsaw. He has a lot of positive feelings towards Poland. You see it in his speeches. You see it in his policies. Use that short window of opportunity to bolster the relationship.
Peter, thank you very much for your visit. Thank you for your visit in Telewizja Republika, and thanks for your support to what we are doing here in Poland. See you soon.
Thank you.